Welcome back to the Works podcast presented by ScareWorks. I'm your host, SamAtScareworks. Today on the show, I'll be talking to the director of the Cinema Arts Center, Skolnick, but first, I'll be reviewing the film Problemista. Before we begin, just a couple quick messages.
The Works podcast is sponsored by Reset Lift. You know, I love going to the gym, but I need the right clothes to go in. Our friends over at Reset Lift have created the perfect gym attire for you, because their whole goal is to inspire you to be the best version of yourself. Go to resetlift.shop/Scareworks right now to get exclusive offers on t-shirts, tanks, hoodies, shorts, joggers, sweatpants. You name it, they have it. Use discount code SCAREWORKS at checkout to receive 10% off on merchandise.
Problemista. Rated R. Written and directed by Julio Torres. Starring Julio Torres, Tilda Swinton, and RZA. Problemista is the impressive debut comedy feature from comedian Julio Torres. Known for his time on Saturday Night Live for writing sketches like Papyrus, the digital short, where Ryan Gosling obsessively scrutinized over the font choice for Avatar, Torres has been slowly making a name for himself in the comedy scene. Picking up a handful of credits like co-creating and writing and producing the HBO comedy series Los Espookies, Torres has also learned a thing or two about navigating an industry often working against newcomers. His new film, in which he is the writer, director, producer, and co-stars next to an unhinged Tilda Swinton, is nothing short of a remarkable achievement. Both outrageously funny and touching, Problemista uses expert visual storytelling to communicate and joke about complicated topics, often really hard to depict on screen. He plays Alejandro, a character I could only assume is semi-biographical to his own life and experience in America. Alejandro is an aspiring toy maker whose ultimate goal is to be a designer for Hasbro. Aside from being one of the most incredibly competitive fields, Alejandro has another problem. Whatever employer hires him will need to become his sponsor as well, thus securing his work visa. This forces him to get a job working at a cryogenics freezing company, storing rich and elderly people in cryostasis until they are woken up at some undisclosed point in time in the future. His job is to ensure the cryostasis backup generator is never unplugged. Otherwise, the frozen Bobby, played by RZA, could die? They aren't actually sure, it just cannot happen. Do not let it be unplugged. The frozen Bobby is married to Elizabeth, the aforementioned Tilda Swinton. Her husband was a painter, and she knows when he finally wakes up, he's no longer going to want her the same. She's going to be so old, as she says. She wants to have an art show for all of the paintings he's left behind. Julio Torres may be bursting with talent, but Swinton is a force to be reckoned with here. Her layered but gigantic performance as Elizabeth has got to be one of the funniest I have ever seen. Anxiety-ridden and furious over everything, the fidgety performance is simply a knockout. From terrorizing a waiter over a mistake in her salad to snapping venomously at someone with the phrase, "I am calm," Swinton has an audience in her grip from the moment she appears on screen. Alejandro agrees to be her personal assistant before realizing the drain of spending time with someone who, from the outside, appears to be a monster. Swinton must have lunged at the opportunity to play the purple-haired art critic with a tragic past and even more tragic present. The chameleon, able to camouflage better than many others in her field. This is one of her most original and daring performances to date. Torres' comedic wit is not just on display in the writing, but it's also in his direction. Visual depictions of Craigslist, the American immigration system, the feeling of not having a permanent home on American soil, or any of the erratic cuts during one of Elizabeth's rants are both hilarious and thought-provoking. Problemista is one of my favorite films so far this year, and I sound like a broken record for saying this, but of course this is an A24 film. I highly recommend everyone goes to check this out before it's out of theaters. If you miss it, please check it out on streaming. This is a wild good time. We will be right back.
If you're local to Long Island, New York, and need movie recommendations, subscribe to the Long Islander newspaper where you can catch my movie reviews and theater write ups every week. We cover everything from local businesses, food and drinks, town events, and sports. Subscribe at longislandernews.com for only $35 a year.
Today on the Works podcast, we have a very special guest. You guys have heard me talk about this place before. It is one of my favorite places on earth. On the program, director of the Cinema Arts Center here in Huntington, Dylan Skolnick. For those of you who don't know, the Cinema Arts Center is a non-for-profit community theater only an hour outside of Manhattan. They show independent and foreign films of all different genres and celebrate the thing I know this audience loves so much, the art of making movies.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, good.
Okay,
Oh, I like the poster there.
thank you.
Birds. Yeah.
I have the birds, and on the other side of the room, I've got Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Exorcist, and I have The Shining back there.
Yeah, I spotted that one. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I'm afraid you're catching me in a particularly visually unexciting spot, but I figure I'd have some privacy.
The cinema just celebrated two huge accomplishments, the first of which being the theater's 50th anniversary, and the second being the theater met its end of the year annual campaign goal. When you reflect on the 50 years the cinema has been open, what are you feeling? Does anything stand out to you?
Wow, yeah, 50 years is a long time. Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's just amazing. People still, still really loving the place, still being supportive, still coming to the movies. There's been a lot of change and evolution over that time. We have to constantly kind of change to meet what the audience is wanting, So it's there's been there's been over the for me who's been around for all those 50 years, it's quite an amazing transformation. But at the same time, a lot of the core ideas are always been the same.
Over that time period, you're talking about this change. I mean, what is some of the observable changes that you've noticed in the audience?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of it's been some of it is cyclical. Things come back, things, the audience um, has been constantly, changing the early audience, we're, and a lot of the people who are some of those are still coming, people who just grew up, an older generation that just grew up going to the movies. It's just what you did. It wasn't even a question. Do you go to the movie? I mean, unless you just don't like them. There are those people who the hell are they? But
Not welcome here.
yeah, duh. Everybody's welcome. But yeah, so anyway, but yeah, that people, so and now, people have more options, more ways to see movies and or not. And so, we need to do more to, bring them out, do a little more to make it something special. When we first started, just that you were showing a movie was like blew people's minds, because it's hard for people to conceive. You have to think back, it's the 1970s, and there is, no internet, no streaming, no home video, no VHS, no DVD, no cable TV. All you have are your, like, channel 2, 4, 7, 9, what they call the terrestrial channels now, I guess. And the movies you could see in theaters were just the new movies that played in the movie. So when once a movie left a movie theater, you'd have to be watching out for that to turn up on the, the late show, at 1 a.m. or something, if you were lucky. So, people were just thrilled. Now you really got to do more. They have so many options and so many ways to see movies, which is amazing. But so we have to make it do a little more to lure them out of the house and to check it out.
Well, and you guys are constantly having events like that at the cinema. I mean, one of the coolest things I had a few months back is actually I got their sticker right here. Is you guys had the Invincible Czars do a performance at the theater, and they were doing soundtracks to silent films, so Nosferatu and The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and you guys kind of I think have this unique position where you're able to have these super artistic events that you really can't get at a like chain theater like AMC or Showcase. Can you describe like just some of the events that you guys have had recently that you think stand out or that you think have really brought people to the theater?
Yeah, well, certainly the Invincible Czars, that was a great night. And really by extension, every time we have the silent, movies with live musical accompaniment, it really is an amazing experience that I keep trying to, it's hard, like we were talking, and it's hard to describe it in a way
Yeah.
that really conveys it, because people are like, well, okay, it's a silent movie and there's some music and it's live, but there's like something that happens, and I've talked to our companies about this, he plays off the movie, but he's also reacting to the audience who are reacting to the movie and reacting to him. And there's this sort of energy that's flying around the room as people are kind of everyone's feeding off each other, and the movie, of course, and the music, and it's all live, right? And
Yeah.
it's so there's something, yeah. So those are always great, and we have a really that attendance for that goes up and down based on the movie. We show Metropolis, we have a
Cool.
big crowd. When we show, a lesser known film, maybe it's just the hardcore silent film buffs show up.
So it
But
was weird, like during that showing, I had never heard of the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari before. I of course had heard of Nosferatu, which was the double feature that they were doing that night, but I had never heard or seen anything of Caligari, and it was one of my favorite movie-going experience in recent memory. It was such a just a surrealistic and wild ride, and the music that they had to accompany it was, truly like kind of a once in a lifetime experience. And like realistically, like that's not the first once in a lifetime experience I've had at your cinema. You guys offer a lot of things. Um, and you're able to do that because like I said in the intro here, you guys are a non-for-profit and you guys really uh live and breathe the memberships that the cinema has. Can you just explain like what the cinema offers through their memberships and why it's important to have those?
sure. So membership has been a key part of our structure since the beginning. And there's sort of a number of elements to it. One is certainly is a financial element that, ticket sales can be like a roller coaster, especially, from week to week or month to month. And, membership provides a nice, steady uh, income. But it's more than that. It's certainly for like a lot of people when they first sign up, or when especially at the most basic level, there is something sort of basically transactional about it. They know they're going to save money every time they buy a ticket if they come often enough. They've paid for their membership and then some. Um, that's great. We have no problem with that. That's how it works. But there's also a sense that as the people, they become members, they start feeling kind of a bond, connection to the theater. They start feeling like it's theirs, not just
Yeah.
it's all, and sometimes they act like it. They say, would you do that at a regular, at the multiplex? And they'll go, no, I wouldn't. I would never ask. So why are you doing it here? But
The joys
but
of the
yes,
public.
it's great. No, but it really is wonderful. I'm joking around. It's really wonderful, and they come more often. They then consider perhaps making donations on top of their membership. They all these sort of things. So it really is, and it just becomes a key part of that kind of community that they hopefully become part of, a cinema community.
Well, I mean, I was just about to touch on that. I mean, like the community at the Cinema Arts Center is strong. You guys have really cultivated such a strong film-loving community there. Um, I mean, what do you attribute that to? And also, what is the mission of the Cinema Arts Center? What is your goal?
Well, the goal is, um, really, yeah, bringing people together to experience amazing movies, to explore those movies and explore the wider world through them, you know, to, discover in that way that, only, art can, kind of experience, having other experiences way beyond your own. Um, and in terms of the, the community, yeah, there's so much of modern life that's kind of, isolating us and pulling us apart. I mean, I love being able to watch movies at home, that's great, and we're not opposed, I'm opposed to that. But, I also don't want to spend every night of my life, alone at home or with my, my girlfriend or, one or two other people. You want to get out and be part of the world, see other people, and that, that can, there's immense range within that, there's a good quote. I was listening to A.O. Scott, used to be the film critic at the New York Times until recently, who said that moviegoing was a great communal experience for antisocial people. Um, and it's true. There's that basic level where you can just go and in a group of people and you're doing something, and that's a good thing right there. But then, we try to build on that. We have the discussions, during the, introductions, post film discussions. We have the cafe where hopefully people go hang out and meet and talk. And, we have the Sunday schmoozes and all these things that attempt to really make it a real social experience as well. So if you want that.
Well, I mean, touching on, meeting and chatting with people, you guys constantly also have like such awesome guest speakers there. Many of whom we featured on this podcast. I mean, just recently we had Foster Hirsch. We just had David Abel on the podcast. I think we're going to be having Bill Plimpton on this fall. I mean, such wonderful people that you have coming to the cinema. I mean, looking back, what are some of the most exciting guests that you've had?
Wow, yeah. Yeah, I mean that's just a key part of, what one of the things that makes this unique, that makes us another theater I know puts it on their motto, an experience you can't download. Um, it's so yeah, I mean it's just wonderful to be able to have these people and they see them here, and there's so many. You could trying to think, I mean, there's sort of the most famous people that's, sort of thing, like when we had David Lynch here, that was amazing, John Waters and
Yeah,
Isabella Rossellini, and those, that kind of
that's
thing,
so cool.
is amazing. But then there's so many others that, just really great filmmakers, amazing people who films were about, subjects of films, and being able to see that movie and then immediately start talking to them and hear, is has been great. So there's just been so many exciting, days and nights over the years. It's great.
I wanted to kind of touch base on the history of the Cinema Arts Center. Your website talks about how patrons kind of reminisce about being there in the old days, like the sheet on the wall days, as that's quoted on the website. Um, and you even said, just previously that, some of the patrons that have been going there forever, and that's part of the community that you've built there. Can you talk about like what the early days of the cinema was like?
Yeah, it was a blast. It's the 1970s. Yeah. Well, it's basically, it started because the founders of the Cinema Arts Center, they moved out to, they've been living in New York City, where there was a very, very, active film scene. There was, repertory theaters, all kinds of first run international films. And suddenly they moved out to Long Island, and, at least for film at that time, I was sort of sketching it out before, was a bit of a wasteland. There really was nothing, and I think they could have just been depressed about it, but they decided to do something, and so they borrowed a 16 millimeter print and a 16 millimeter projector from the library. They hung up a bed sheet on a wall in a dance studio, and made up some flyers and advertised to come. Um, and and people had to bring their own folding chairs because there were no chairs.
Oh,
But most people have something like that from their garden or something. So,
sure.
um, and it it immediately sort of worked. I mean, obviously it was a small scale, but people started coming immediately. And, cutting back to what I was saying before about people's sort of hunger for this, I mean, the technology was pretty basic. These were often not great 16 millimeter prints. Initially, there was only one projector, and most 16 millimeter prints are, we'll say, 2 to 4 reels long. So there would just be some breaks. The film would stop, room would be dark, you'd hear someone, you know, click, click, scratch, scratch,
Shuffle around.
film going through the projector, and then it would start again. And people thought that was fine. Nowadays people would not find that fine. They
Right.
really have a much higher level of technological expectation. But yeah, so people just, it started in this dance studio, then it went to a gymnastics studio, which had its own complication because it was a big tumbling room with a mat floor, and you couldn't walk on the floor with shoes on. And it's kind of too many people, or at least we don't really, not something Americans are used to, taking their shoes off. So what was the solution came up was that there was lots of carpets were found, mostly from driving around that people were getting rid of, and they would just be laid out in this sort of checkerboard all across the room. So there would be this, and then people would bring their chairs that they would put on on top of the carpets and watch the movie. Um, then that space became unavailable, and we moved actually kind of just upstairs. It was the old Huntington Firehouse, and that was the first permanent, full-time, our place home. And that was um, funky in its own way. This is one that people often talk about, was that, so it was downstairs, there was a Salvation Army, which had lots and lots of, they couldn't get rid of all these couches and chairs, big easy chairs that they had that just were donated in large amounts as people upgraded their furniture. And so we offered, you'd pay like $20 for 4 couches or 5 couches, and then you just take them out the door and walk them like up the stairs, And so it was a giant living room kind of. You have to picture seated like 100+ people, and it was just nothing but couches and easy chairs, and it was great. There was a downside, which fortunately was never seriously tested, which was that it's a fire hazard. Yeah. So that period ended, and that sort of suddenly became an issue. And anyways, there were a lot of complications around that time, but basically we needed a home, and for assorted reasons, the town of Huntington wanted to help. And they had this elementary school they had bought, which from the school district for $1. And it was a big, empty, giant school building that was getting vandalized on most nights by kids coming in looking for a nice private place to do whatever you want to do.
Sure.
And
As you
so
do.
they thought, well, all right, this place has an auditorium, and maybe if there's things going on there at night, people won't vandalize it, and which actually did work. And so then we got here, and it's changed over the years. So then that we went from 16 millimeter to 35 millimeter, and then of course ultimately to digital, though we still have our 35s. The seats that used to be these awful school seats that were padded on the bottom and wooden backs that drove people crazy.
I
Those
remember
were
them.
replaced and then replaced again.
Yeah.
Finally now we have our even newer seats that just went in a couple years ago. So they're super
Which are
comfortable.
very nice, by the way. It was a good upgrade.
Oh, good. Yeah. So yeah. So it's so it's and the technological presentation has gotten more and more polished, and
Yeah.
so that's yeah. So people remember that time. It was kind of a lot funkier, and it was fun. Um, but now it's more polished and it's a better presentation.
Um, you know, Over the course of, I guess since you really opened the cinema to now, I mean, have you noticed a change in the themes of the movies that are generally coming out and being distributed, at least in the independent market?
Um, well, I guess it's just diversified a lot. I mean, when it first started on a lot of the independent films, think we're very earnest,
Hmm.
kind of, and it's kind of coming out of maybe more of the 60s and 70s had a certain kind of counterculture kind of granola, good ideas sort of quality, but it's diversified really even from then. That was just some of them. And then it's just expanded and expanded. I mean, there was the enormous explosion in in the 80s with American independent cinema. There's always been international films that are just, amazing, all types. And it's just, kind of grown and expanded. And now, there's been a lot of change now with, the whole streaming, infrastructure and how that's changed, I think, life for independent filmmakers in America. But there's still people, you know, sometimes it's more economically challenging now than it was, a few decades ago. But at the same time, the equipment is so easy to get your hands on, and there's just new films and new filmmakers, and there's always interesting work being done. And so the kind of films, yeah, it just goes through. I mean, I think it's just keeps expanding, and there's trends. There was like the post Tarantino thing where we had a zillion, tough guy crime movies, or this or the, when Sundance sort of emerged, and there was a lot of films that came out of the Sundance lab that had a certain style. These sort of trends come and go, but really good filmmakers, they just get their hands on the equipment and they go out and do something and, do something different.
When when the cinema first opened, can you also speak to, I guess, the culture locally around cinema and how that's changed, if at all?
Oh yeah, I think, I mean, I think a big part was there were other people who had come from the city and were really missing the chance to see a wide range of movies. They were just, I mean, it's always been, I mean, we don't reach the, sort of, it's the concept of, people have said, this movie is for anyone, but not everyone.
Yeah.
So like we feel like if you really want to try it, and you'll find movies here that you really love, but they're not. We don't. We're not like a big Hollywood studio that's spending $300 million on a movie, and if everyone doesn't go see it, it's a disaster. So they have to make it, palatable and bland, and make it so it plays to every, four quadrants or whatever marketing thing they come up with. That everyone, young and old, will want to go see it, which can be, has a certain interesting quality, but also can be tend toward blandness, tend toward, whereas, as opposed to films that are really distinctive, and some people like it, and other people are like, forget that. But what we're finding is that there's always been a slice of our area, a slice of Long Island, that people who are looking for something different, that, and it's, over the years, I think more people have kind of come out here who are looking for that, or born out here and are just, searching for that. And, that when they hear about something that's really different, unusual, whatever word you want to use, instead of being turned off like a lot of people are, like I'm always arguing with my mom or something. She's always like, she'll talk about some movie and she's like, oh, well, this movie is from, Burkina Faso, and people have never seen a film from Burkina Faso. They'll be interested. They'll want to go see it just because it's from there. And I'm telling her, no, that's you. You want to see it because it's from there. A lot of other people are going to go, hmm, why
Right.
would I want to see
Right.
that?
Right.
Uh, but then, there are other people who, have that thought in their head like she does, that, oh, yeah, that sounds interesting. That sound, it doesn't sound like anything I've ever seen, or maybe it sounds a little like that other film I saw there last year. I'll try it. And so it's that people are more adventurous, and I think recently there's been a real emergence of a kind of younger audience that's really looking for something and discovering the history of film, and discovering the variety of film, and that how much more there can be.
Do you think younger audiences are possibly becoming more interested in older films because the films that they've grown up with have generally been studio creations that aren't very good?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I mean, I think there's always been a slice, like I said, that's, that looks at the mainstream stuff and maybe likes that too. I mean, I actually, I mean, there are Hollywood movies, even recent ones. I'm like, oh, that was cool. But so I don't want to knock them entirely. But yeah, I think young people through various ways, through sometimes through streaming, through the internet, through the library, through theaters like us, through TCM, through things like that, are just discovering the history of film and wanting more, and also wanting that big screen experience in addition to, because I always am arguing, it's like you don't have to, you shouldn't have to choose. You should be able to be home and watch TCM or stream something on Criterion Channel or whatever streaming service you like. I'll give them a plug because I like them.
Yeah, of course.
And but you know, and you should be able to go out and see movies, as they were made on the big screen, and have that have that too, have that as well. And also, we still have our 35 millimeter projectors, so there's an audience that's starting to grow of people who understand there's a difference when you see a
Hmm.
film on film and are, want to take advantage and come out when we advertise 35 millimeter screening.
Hmm.
So I think, and and there's a lot of younger people who that's especially, they really are, gravitating toward that. They really sent, they're hungry for these kind of experiences and
Yes.
learning about, what's out there, what they could be seeing.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing is like I think a lot of younger people aren't aware of what's out there because, the marketing campaigns for a lot of the big budget movies drown out any of the marketing for the independent ones, which I think most people generally get more from, you know. And I think what I found interesting over the past couple of years is like the rise of studios like A24, right? That generally specialize in these kind of indie art house films, and yet there's even like people that I know aren't super into movies know that studio. So like to me that speaks to the fact that I think people are very desensitized to the studio movie, and what that looks like, and it's kind of play by play. As opposed to in the independent cinema world, there's so much more experimentation going on. There's so much more freedom in the storytelling itself. Um, I mean, I'm just wondering. I mean, do you concur with any of those thoughts? Do you see any studios that you think have been doing work like that?
You mean Hollywood studios?
Yeah, I mean, like, studios like A24, because I mean, I feel like, um, it's surprising to me that like, A24 has a category on Netflix now. You know, Universal net has never had a category on Netflix. Um, I mean, you could argue that maybe like Warner Brothers at its prime, like in the 40s and 50s, might have been like you immediately know it's a Warner Brothers film. But since the kind of downfall of studios in the 50s and 60s, I've never seen a studio that's marketed um, to this degree among a younger generation.
Oh yeah, I mean, once upon a time, I mean, yeah, now the studios most of them are so indistinguishable. I
Yep.
mean, you mentioned Warner Brothers, but if you really go back and look, that every studio had a distinctive
Hmm.
style. MGM was very
Of course,
glossy and upscale.
they make beautiful movies about beautiful people.
Yeah, Warner Brothers were very gritty. It was like the more, working class and
Film noir.
crime and noir. You know, Universal was famous for horror and also in various times for like so these glossy um, kind of big budget movies. I mean, each studio really did have, especially back then, had a personality, and that over time really disappeared. I think, yeah. I mean, except for certain brands like Marvel or something, it's like Um, I mean, that's, that, right? But, other than that now, and even then, Warner Brothers makes all the other companies made superhero movies too. So
Yeah.
how different is that? So, they just own these particular properties, right? So anyway, so yeah, I think A24 has kind of, he really stepped into that. And, really, it's also just smart marketing. I mean, they've really created as, a brand
Hmm.
that people identify with. Um, I mean, it's crazy. We have audience members and staff who come wearing A24, branded hats and shirts and,
Hmm.
socks. Um,
Which
so,
is strange. Like, I think that's subjectively strange. I mean, I've never ever seen that, as early as I could remember being in love with cinema, I've never seen a studio kind of gain that cultural clout as fast as they have. Because I mean, I remember seeing at least their first film that I remember seeing from them was Spring Breakers, and nobody knew who or what that studio was at that time, and that wasn't even that long ago.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's been, they've really, it's amazing what they've done. I mean, I will mention that, they are a corporation,
Of
and,
course.
they don't, no, I mean, they don't, I just mentioned, they don't actually, they're sort of present as the ultimate of independent cinema. They don't actually treat independent cinemas any differently than any other company. So, but, they've done, we're really, we work with them all the time. We show a lot of their movies and like working with them. So, but yeah, it's been great. They've created that. I think Neon to some extent
Neon
has
is also
created a little more of an identity. Um, other companies probably,
IFC.
IFC, Focus,
Yeah.
Searchlight, not so much lately, but they have over the years, that people
Searchlight.
sort of recognize.
So I will give Searchlight credit. They did do Poor Things this year, or last year rather. So I'll give them credit on that one. I liked Poor Things.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were a little more adventurous when they were Fox Searchlight, but now that
Sure.
they're well, now it's just called Searchlight, but it's Disney owns them. So, um, but they just put out Poor Things, and I love that movie. I had a great time. So, yeah, no, I mean, um, yeah, there is sort of there has been something of a people are starting to make connections between the company and the film to some extent. You know, um, so yeah, certainly A24 is the one that's really really pushed that to the max. Yeah.
You guys also do a lot of like I hate the term like cult following, like but you guys do a lot of culty movies. Um I mean just in the past year alone, you guys had Greg Sestero there showing The Room. You guys had a showing of Vampire's Kiss. Of course, you guys do Rocky Horror Picture Show usually around Halloween time. What's one of the cult movies that you've screened that had like a surprising turnout?
Oh, what was that was surprising. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, surprising. I don't know. Boy, we've lately we packed them in with the Goonies. Keep selling out.
Goonies, that's so funny.
Yeah, yeah. But no, I mean, there's a lot of them are, things you sort of, you love and and we're always happy to be doing Rocky Horror again. And was great having Greg out with The Room. I mean, all that is really cool. And it's just, I don't know, the goal is to try, I mean, you can never show everything, but we try to come as close as we can on a certain level. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to be like, oh, it's like this is their niche. They do this and nothing else, and my girlfriend calls it, we do everything from class to trash. And that's what I love. I mean, for me, speaking
Yeah.
just for me, I love when these things are like right next to each other. When when you're looking, that you have Casablanca next to Satan Tango,
Yeah.
next to Blood Feast, next
Yes.
to
I
Blue
think the other
Velvet.
night you guys had Casablanca and then like Titan playing or something. And it's like, whoa, like, that is a double feature right there. Um,
Yeah, so it's you just like this should be something for everybody, and you have the very latest movie from A24, and you have here's a classic, here's The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari from
yeah,
1920, I think, right? Yeah, yeah.
yeah, 21.
21. Okay.
But so okay, so um, you guys also have the Skyroom Cafe in the cinema. Can you talk about some of the events that go on in there and like how those are a little bit different from the movies that you're seeing?
Yeah, it's kind of a multi-purpose room. I mean, a lot of the time it is a cafe where people can hang out and, just be, talking and having a snack and using the Wi-Fi. But yeah, we do, but we also have events in there. We do, and mostly, most often is lectures, you know, and sometimes some music concerts. Actually, we have open mic night right now every Wednesday, and you know, so we do, there's that kind of stuff. We have receptions in there and such. We were showing movies in there, but people that, come back to us saying about the technological level of what people expect. It wasn't really meeting that level.
Fair enough.
So we used to have the cult cafe in the cafe. Now the cult cafe is in the theater.
Yeah.
Um,
When I
so,
was
so
last
it's
time I
programs
was
that are that are like showing a whole movie. It's like lectures with clips, music concerts, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
last time I was in the cafe, I got Bill Plimpton to draw me this little guy. For those of you who are not watching, it's just a picture of one of the characters from his new movie Slide. Um, I guess so. Looking at the slate in 2024, is there anything you're excited for coming to the theater?
Oh, yeah, what's coming up? That's of course now I'm just going to draw a complete blank. But what's coming up soon? I'm trying to think. I mean, this new Ken Loach film, The Old Oak, which we're doing next month. It's really good. Um, yeah, what else? I mean, it's a little hard to say. There's so many movies that you're hearing about that are, like maybe going to be at the Cannes Film Festival that are, sound great. See how soon they show up. We're going to have, of course, we've lined up a bunch of silent films that we're working on. The Best of the Big Screen series, we're going to be a bunch of classic stuff. Oh, we're going to have, talking about repertory stuff, we're going to have end of May, beginning of June, we're going to have our Rainer Werner Fassbinder retrospective.
Oh, cool.
6 movies, 3 of which are going to be on 35 millimeter. Um, that's going to be, people have not seen, I mean, I know his films haven't been as widely seen lately, although they have been coming out on Criterion and such. They're amazing, brilliant films. One of the great filmmakers of all time. What else?
You just mentioned it. What is the best of the big screen?
Oh, well, the Best of the Big Screen is a monthly series here that's, kind of what I would almost describe as the classic classics, the most famous classic films, like Casablanca, like Citizen Kane, Lawrence of Arabia. Then we do a little deep, we just did, I mentioned White Heat.
Hmm.
We're going to have coming up The Bandwagon and Lost Weekend. All kinds of, it's so that's, it's like part of saying there's something for everybody. There's, maybe you and me, or maybe more looking for like that obscure, unknown, film that, oh, we just heard about. Oh, it's a rumor. That's great. We got to catch up with that. And then there's an audience that also is looking for, these legendary, classic films, and we're happy to do that too. And that's been great. And they are amazing on the big screen. Seeing something like Lawrence of Arabia, on the big screen, it
Yeah.
is made for that. Although I'm constantly pushing people. This is also, I'll take a minute here, right, for one of my pet arguments.
Okay.
Um, People have this thing like, well, this is a movie that you need to see on a big screen because it's big, epic stuff, the desert landscapes, etc. But those classic movies, like we're just watching White Heat from, even these older movies that, when you see those faces so big and you can see every little gesture, every little thing, I think, that is just as important, seeing those films that people go, well, I can see that on TV because it's just people's faces. It's like, no, there's something special when you really see those faces, when you
Yeah.
see that emotion, you know, those images on the big screen. To me, it's just as important. So I keep pushing that idea, not always with a lot of success, but.
Well, the same idea is pushed by Christopher Nolan, so I mean, I'd say you're in good company there. Christopher Nolan's shooting all of Oppenheimer in close-ups in IMAX cameras. I mean, it's important to get all those little facial tics as they happen. Um, because it is a different experience when you do see that on the big screen. And just to touch on, just some of the classics that I've gotten to see at your theater. I mean, Bride of Frankenstein, 1935, of course, Dr. Caligari and Nosferatu I saw. Um, Probably gonna blank. I mean, Paths of Glory, when you just did the Stanley Kubrick retrospective. I've never seen that before. I got to see it for the first time on a big screen. Casablanca, you guys just had on Valentine's Day. I saw that for the first time on the big screen with you guys. Really like just amazing experiences that, again, like you just can't get at the local AMC or Showcase or Regal. So just thank you for that. It's really just such a treat that, my whole life I've really gotten to live around the cinema and got to experience those type of stuff.
No, we love doing it.
Um, Before we go, last thing I wanted to touch on, um, all your concessions that you guys have are all mostly, I think, locally sourced. Especially those chocolate bars. You guys got amazing chocolate bars going on there. Um, Chip and Dip, I think, is the chocolate bar brand. So like what's going on at the concessions? What do you guys offer there for people that have never been to the cinema?
Well, yeah, we Chip and Dip is a local company. They make really cool chocolate bars. We're really happy to be offering those. We get stuff from local bakeries. We have beer from Threes Brewing. We have our organic popcorn that
Of course.
that
World famous at this point.
and you know, so we have all that. We have some regular non-local stuff, and we have Coca-Cola and all
Of
that stuff
course.
too. For
Can't
once
get
again,
away without
something for
Coca-Cola.
everybody.
Yeah.
We didn't have the Coca-Cola for a long time. People complained and complained and complained. So
And now you're bringing them beer. I mean, like, you can't get better than that.
yeah, no, there's beer. There's wine. We have beer and wine license now. Yeah, baked goods, blondies from local bakery. It's brownies. Um, people seem to really like it. We haven't had as much. We used to have more before the pandemic. We had more food as opposed to just snacks. We're hoping to get that back. It's just some financial and logistical things that we got to get straightened out. But
Well,
in the meantime, we have a lot of good stuff.
of course, the best way to help these guys out with their finances is becoming a member at the Cinema Arts Center. You could, of course, become a member at the box office or at the cinemaartscenter.org. Um, Last question I have for you. Are you going to be watching the Oscars this weekend, and who are you betting on winning?
Oh, sure. Well, yeah. Well, we have an annual Oscar party fundraiser, so I pretty much have to watch the Oscars. But I like when we were closed to the pandemic, I still watched. I've always enjoyed the Oscars. I think it's fun. Um, people whine and complain about it and want it to be something it's not. It's like, this is it. This is what it is. If you like it, great. So yeah, so I'll definitely be watching. I like watching, to see who wins, basically. I like that whole experience, and also sometimes there's some cool speeches. Not that concerned about the jokes, although something makes me laugh, that'll be great. In terms of what's going to win, this seems like a year where there's some categories that are really tight, but there's a bunch that are not. I guess if you're filling out your Oscar ballot, obviously you should pick Oppenheimer to win.
As your yeah.
Hopefully, I know people, they fill out their ballot and they put out when they want to win. It's like, well, that's fine, but don't expect to go home with that Oscar pool win if you do
Yeah.
that.
I I really loved Emma Stone in Poor Things this year, and I don't think she's gonna get it against Lily Gladstone, who I also loved in Killers of the Flower Moon. But I think, I've been really loving what Emma Stone's been bringing to the screen, and I'm rooting for her, but I just don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I think Lily Gladstone was really great. And I think there's a lot of people who are, happy to go with her. And Emma Stone, there's also feel that she did win one already. So she's already got an Oscar. And I think also people feel like she's just, in the prime of her career, and that she'll have more chances. She'll have more movies of that sort of level, and will be up for it again.
Supposedly her and Yorgos have already filmed a whole other movie together
Oh yeah,
while
they
they were
have.
doing
They
Poor
filmed.
Things.
Yeah, they've finished another movie, and they're getting ready to shoot another one. This I don't know if this is one you remember, but they're doing a remake of the Korean film "Save the Green Planet," which is
Okay,
have you ever seen that?
I haven't.
Track It Down is a great movie, um, and that you'll want to track it down also because now you're going to be wanting to compare it with the Yorgos Lanthimos Emma Stone remake. Yeah, they're just, they really seem like they've found this great partnership, and it's really cool. And yeah, I don't think she's gonna win. I'm thinking Cillian Murphy is gonna win
Probably.
the tight race, him or Paul Giamatti.
I have to tell you, I loved The Holdovers. It was probably one of my favorite movies of the year, which was a surprise for me because I'm really not into the Christmas movie. But I mean, I absolutely loved The Holdovers. I honestly think Alexander Payne outdid himself on that one. His direction is just stellar. It's just, to me, it's just absolutely flawless direction. It's just so he had such a clear vision on that project. And I think honestly, if the award's going to anybody on that project, it'd actually be Payne. I mean, his directing is just incredible on that project. As an aspiring director myself, I watched that movie and just felt I would never be talented enough. Um, I also I also think Divine Joy Randolph in that movie was incredible. I think she's probably a shoe-in for Best Supporting.
Oh yeah, yeah, she's got that locked up. Put that on your ballot if you're,
Oh yeah,
and Alexander Payne is not gonna win probably,
no,
but
I'd like him to, but it's not gonna happen.
it's
But
Christopher Nolan, yeah.
but well, anyway, Dylan, it has been an absolute pleasure to talk with you. If you are in the Huntington area ever, do yourself a favor. Go to the Cinema Arts Center. It is one of the best places in the world to go see a movie. You're going to see something there that you've probably never been told about, you've never heard of, and it will probably blow you away. This place, I just wanted to say, has inspired me so much as a filmmaker. I wouldn't be the filmmaker I am without this place. And I sincerely hope that you guys make it another 50 years.
Thank
Um,
you.
so, Dylan, thank you for being on the podcast today. Really appreciate it. And I hope to see you guys in March Center soon. All
Thank you
right.
so much.